I want to talk about creativity and artificial intelligence by looking at the steps in the creative process and by leveraging the 3B's models that we learned earlier in class. So creativity consists of first generating ideas by bending, breaking, or blending existing ideas, and then having to go through those ideas and select one and work upon it to create the final idea, which is a creative result. Now let's have a closer look at how computers generate and select ideas. So the way in which computers generate ideas, it's always traceable where its idea came from. So the way it generates idea might be idea 1 that you give it, it'll multiply it by 2 and create idea 2. And to make it look a little bit random, what it can do is say idea 1 times 2 plus add a little bit of noise from the microphone, and that gives you idea 2. But regardless, the way in which the idea is generated is always traceable, and we can understand the morphology of ideas as it goes through. Whereas for human beings, sometimes we just get random, and ideas come out of nowhere, or we're at least not able to justify where they came from. Now this could be a case that human cognitive processes are too complex to simulate right now, or it could be a problem of measurement, which is trying to measure it, or just using our consciousness to measure our own activity and morphology of ideas is insufficient because most of our thoughts take place in the subconscious. The fundamental differences in the way in which computers and humans generate ideas at the current stage. Now let's look at selection of ideas. Again, computers, the way in which they select ideas are on clearly defined criteria which they have learned or that they have been inputted with. And we can always trace back why a decision was made by a computer, even if some random noise is added in between. Whereas for humans, sometimes we just feel like it, and we feel like this is the correct idea. And again, that process is perhaps too complex to simulate right now, or we don't have enough understanding with our own consciousness of our own thought processes. Another thing to note is what computers versus humans see when they're making a decision. For example, this array of numbers, which is what a computer sees, will be represented to a human being as perhaps the picture of a sunset. And as a human being, we can say, oh, sunsets, I have happy memories associated with them because I used to watch them with my family. Whereas for a computer, it's very simply that the gradient of light intensity changes from the left to the right, or the top from the bottom of the screen. And it learned from looking at pictures of other sunsets that humans liked that when the gradient of light changes across, it means it's a good picture because it's probably a sunset. So there are fundamental differences right now in the way that artificial intelligence and humans generate and then select ideas. So creativity, the human creativity is something that computers right now probably mimic more so than fundamentally do. And it's possible to think that when computers do become more complex and do come up with creative results more independently, they'll probably take a different thought process than humans actually do. Here's an example of a creative work by a computer which created and then decided on human faces. So what it did is it took as input different human faces as sources and tried to map it onto destinations. And the cross section of this displays where it created new human faces, and this is amazing. Like, computers are now creating passport photos. And they all look pretty realistic. But at a closer look, we can see that while a computer was able to generate many ideas, it did struggle in deciding which one were human faces and which one were not. For example, these 3 enlarged pictures at the bottom, we have mismatched eyes or mismatched earrings, which to a human being would be easier to detect and understand. Now we could, code into our artificial intelligence system, check for eye color or check for this. But then that's defining the intelligence. It's not letting computers learn by themselves. So at least at this stage right now, computers do face difficulties in making decisions on their creative outputs. But another view to look at is that, artificial intelligence is aiding us to be more creative. For example, even something, seemingly simple as Google helps us in the generation and selection of ideas. If we want to draw a painting, we might Google a picture and look at different pictures that other people have taken and get inspired by them. And what Google is doing here is it's using artificial intelligence to sort all the pictures on the internet to give us the right ones to look at. So in a way, we can argue that, hey, artificial intelligence has helped us to be more creative. Artificial intelligence also helps to bring knowledge to our fingertips, which helps us select the right ideas and filter out unfeasible ideas. AI has helped us be more creative in science as well, especially in neuroscience, where recording brain signals generate terabytes of data, and no human is able to have the time to go through that. So instead, a computer can look at it, look for coarser patterns and then present those to human beings, who can then make creative learnings from those patterns after taking a closer look. An example of AI aiding us in creativity in music was a song that you heard before, where the AI actually generated just a sample of chords that the human could use, and then the original song that the AI created sounded terrible, but the human being used that chords, put them in a nice order, got inspired by what the computer presented to her, and then sang over it, created some nice lyrics. And to close off our presentation, with this conclusion that AI in its current form is greatly aiding human creativity, I want to show you this quote from the artist who created that song. So she suggested that artificial intelligence is a tool, and it's a tool that makes musicians more productive. So sure, it might be better than some musicians and put them out of business, but at the end of the day, it's a tool, much like the piano was. And there's no need to be horrified by it, but to take inspiration and to learn how to use the tool. So to conclude, in its current form, artificial intelligence is not able to independently generate and select ideas to be considered creative for a large part. Most of its creativity is mimicry of what we human beings consider to be creative. But at the same time, there's no reason where fundamentally in the future we can't simulate more complex neurons and connections in the brain, and even create a brain or simulate a brain inside a computer and let it interact with other brains to fulfill the societal purpose of the societal role in creativity. And perhaps then that day, computers will be creative and computers will take over the world.